All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to Be a Warrior podcast. I am so excited. For those of you who've been following, I am about 3 weeks out from an AMI procedure out in Boston. And I wanted to bring back on again for our second time Dr. Hugh Herr from MIT. I have to just go through this. There's some accolades. Of course, I have to read it because there's so many, but I'm going to truncate it a little bit for us. But we have an engineer, a researcher, and a biophysicist. He is a professor of media arts and sciences at MIT and director of the MIT Biomechatronics group. Along with Time Magazine coined him the leader of the Bionic age and a million other hats that you wear, and a plethora of other awards that have been awarded for your amazing work in this field. And I also want to tell people, if you want to hear a lot more about Hugh's story, I had him back on April 23rd of 2024. So you can go back to that podcast to hear a little bit more in detail. But today, Hugh, thank you so much for coming back on to talk about the AMI
Pleasure.
procedure.
Sure, my pleasure.
It's great to have you here. Also, just to be able to talk, I know that so many questions have come my way since I started opening up more to show the process of going through it and just more the personal side of it and what it's like to actually go back in, knowing you're getting a revision, having to go through that again, restarting your whole
Uh-huh.
amputation really from the get-go. Really wasn't thinking about that till I talked to Devin at Bionic Skins. He goes, you're starting over. I'm like, oh. I was just
Thanks.
thinking like the TMR surgery, 4 weeks out, put my leg back on. He goes, yeah, no, no, the swelling. And I'm like, oh. So patience is not my key element in my body. So I'm working on that. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about where this all came from. Like, how did I mean, going back to what amputations have been like, and I talked to Dr. Carty about this. And we talked about how old amputations are, how long they've been around, and how much has never really changed in them. Is that accurate to say that over the years, hundreds of years, there's been no difference really?
Yeah, really, since the US Civil War until very recently, there's been little innovation in the way limbs are amputated. A lot of the same surgical techniques are described in very early textbooks in that era, and are very similar up to this modern age. But
Why
recently,
is, oh,
there's an explosion of activity and a new thinking around how limbs should be amputated in kind of a bionic reconstructive framework.
okay. So then what led you guys? Because it was you and Dr. Carty that led the charge on this, correct? This is your baby, the AMI procedure. And could you tell them what AMI stands for and really where this started? Where was the starting point of this? What got it growing to create it?
You know, the AMI is an acronym. It stands for agonist-antagonist myoneural interface. That is a mouthful, right?
That's why I had you say it.
That's why we stick with AMI or AMI.
Yeah.
I think Amy came from a perspective of anatomy and biology and how mechatronic devices need to be controlled.
Okay.
So there was a long literature in engineering control about how the biological body and prostheses and certain types of machines should be able to control their position and their stiffness or impedance.
Mhm.
So that's a broad story that came out of MIT over many, many decades by Professor Neville Hogan and others. Um, and throughout that literature, it was recognized that what's amazing about the musculoskeletal system, with muscles and tendons about joints and a redundancy of muscle tendons about joints, is that
Mm.
us humans can vary the position of our bodies and at each position independently control how stiff our joints are. So my elbow, I can move it to 90 degrees, and at
Mm.
90 degrees I can be soft or I can be really stiff, right? So
Oh,
that
yeah.
that independence of position and in what's called stiffness or impedance is really critical in how we work as humans. We
Mm.
wouldn't work as well as we do if it wasn't for that.
True.
So biomimetic machines like a prosthesis should have that same capability. And they should be able to be controlled by the brain.
Okay.
Um, so our notion of position and stiffnesses and loads come from what's called proprioception. And a lot of proprioception is due to actual biological sensors in the muscle tendon.
Okay.
So there's a muscle is not just a muscle that an entity that creates movement. It's also a rich environment for sensing. So when we move, our muscle tendons send to the brain their length, speed, and force.
Okay.
And that's called proprioception. So you can close your eyes and I can
Right.
find my two fingertips.
Yeah.
That's proprioception. Would be completely impossible without proprioception.
Yeah. Okay.
And in prosthetics, we want persons with amputation that are using prostheses to actually sense the position, speeds, and loads of their synthetic joints as if it were a flesh and bone joint.
Yeah.
So just deep knowledge of how the body produces proprioception and controls positions and stiffnesses
Yeah.
came to this idea of creating muscle pairs that are natural that wouldn't trigger relearning at the time of amputation or as a revision, as you just
Yeah.
went through.
Yeah.
Um, because so that's kind of the native Amy, just connecting native muscles with a native neurovascular leash in the residuum, connecting them so when one shortens, the other lengthens, and so forth, and the brain gets all this information.
Right.
And there's the regenerative Amy, where you build those muscles up from little muscle grafts that don't yet
Huh.
have a nerve or a vascularization. Um, but same idea. You build two little muscles and you give them a nerve, and when one contracts, the other is stretched. So those fundamental ideas and how to link those muscle dynamics to the control of a bionic joint came like late 2013, early 2014.
Okay.
Um, and I had recently met Matt Carty, and I had been thinking about these ideas. And one day, sheepishly, I presented the idea, and I said, "How palpable is this from a surgical perspective? Like, is this doable, or is this completely outlandish?" And he quickly said, "Oh no, it's trivial." So that just
Wow.
launched this entire initiative. So it was several years in preclinical work, doing all the basic science to validate the ideas, and then transitioning into a first in human study.
Yeah, I mean, and he said too, I mean, you both were coming from a little bit different angles on it because he was working a lot with upper extremities, I believe, is what he said at first, right? And so he
And he was
was,
doing a lot of with we actually began discussing on kind of a competition between total limb transplantation, which was
yes,
something that he was pushing.
yeah,
And your viewers may not know what that is. It's a completely wild idea where you take a limb from another human that is deceased and you attach it to a living human. So you
yeah,
connect the bone and all the soft tissue. So it's wild. So we
wow,
first met in this kind of competition. If you did an experiment where you did a bionic reconstruction and you compare it to a total limb transplantation,
right.
which would be better? And I was, of course, arguing bionics would run circles around limb transplantation, but that
Oh,
was
for
the
sure.
first set of conversations.
Well, and it kind of is funny because as you say that, I have a quote that you did in the Superhuman Body interview that is exactly that. And you stated my biological body is worse in time and my bionic limbs are getting better in time. So if you
Yeah,
were just
I have a friend in synthetic. He's a Joe Jacobson at MIT. He's in synthetic biology.
Yeah.
And we have this running joke. He's like, Hugh, why don't we just grow limbs back? Just like a
Like an
salamander.
octopus or a lizard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And I
that's no,
and I
because then we
say,
wouldn't have the
Joe,
joke. It doesn't grow back, right? So then that joke's
the
out.
joke is I say, Joe, why would you ever want to do that? Like in 10
Right.
years, synthetic motors are going to be better than biological muscles. Like, why would you ever want that?
Right.
Anyway,
Well, and that comment that you made was based on someone saying, people always ask amputees. I feel like this is the big question. If you could do it all over again. And
right.
I'm like, I'm happy where I'm at, and I wouldn't do that because I know that the body fails. And so unfortunately, I have my other leg. So that's going to fail well before my anything on my prosthetic side.
Yeah, I
But
mean, to be honest, prostheses are still pretty darn terrible. Um, but things are changing so fast
yeah,
that,
yeah,
10, definitely 20 years, I think we're going to be knocking on the door of these bionic limbs are as good or better than biological limbs.
yeah.
And that, beyond that, when they're hands down better,
Mhm.
that's going to create a very interesting world. So, for example, if you're 50, 60, 70, 80 or whatever, and you have arthritic hands
Mhm.
and you love knitting, it's going to be a completely rational decision to decide to upgrade to a bionic hand.
Yeah.
Pain-free, as good or better than a biological hand.
Right. Right. We end up losing a lot of the things that we love doing that make life worth living because we
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
continue,
So we
you
we
know.
now live in a cell tissue centric society,
Mhm.
um, where we think, our cells and our tissues are somehow godly and they make us us.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but I think what we're learning in the field that if you beautifully integrate human physiology with a synthetically designed machine, wherein a person can think and have agency over that synthetic construct and feel it as natural percepts, as
Right.
touch and proprioception, that
Yeah.
does not matter what the machine is made of. It
Right.
becomes you. It doesn't
Yeah. And
matter that
very
it's
true.
titanium versus bone.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And it's interesting because I was just telling my husband last night or then 2 nights ago that now that I'm healing and the swelling's going down, I'm getting little whispers of heightened proprioception. Like I tried to cross my leg the other day and there was nothing there. And I was trying to put my good leg over the knee and it wasn't there. But I
Wow.
swear to God it was. And I never did that before.
Wow.
So that
Yep.
I'm like, I can't wait to be fully healed and using the muscles because I'm already sensing some of that change that's coming about. So I'm really excited about what's further down the road. Um, this we talked when I came into your office that day before going through all this. We talked a little bit about, the importance of something like this. One, your quote says it all. Really, our body fails before bionics. Bionics are going to continue to get better and better, and they're quickly getting better and better. But long term, what ends up happening to our residual limb over time of getting beaten down in a socket over and over again? We talked about this because I was looking for a really good reason to reopen up and to go through with this, and you gave me a really great reason. And it's something that most amputees don't think about because we're only concerned with right now because I'm in pain, or right now because I can't get around. Right now I'm out of my socket because it's not fitting. It's all about right now. But what about 20 years from now? And
Right.
what are we seeing with Amy versus just a normal amputation? What's happening?
One thing about Amy that I didn't anticipate, and again, the Amy was invented from the context of better control over a better
Mhm.
myoneural control over a prosthesis. What what I didn't contemplate, and in hindsight, it's pretty obvious, but what I didn't anticipate that when you create agonist-antagonist muscle bodies that can move and move dynamically. The
Yeah.
the body doesn't atrophy, you know. The
Right.
story of, you break your arm and put your arm on a cast, and when the cast comes off a few months later, you can barely recognize your arms because it's so thin.
Right.
So if you connect muscles and they're able to move dynamically, the limb
Mhm.
remains really healthy and hypertrophied. And
Mhm.
it's like when you're a couch potato and you don't move, you
Yeah.
get out of fit. But if you move your body, your muscles, there's a level of fitness. So not surprisingly, persons with these AMI amputations have really robust muscular residuums
Mhm.
compared to a controlled non-AMI case. And there's tremendous value in having a robust musculature limb to socket comfort.
Yeah.
Stated simply, you have a lot of padding.
Yeah.
That muscle hypertrophy, muscle toning allows you to flex and have also control against the socket wall.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what was invented kind of in the context of brain control of limbs actually has these side effects of also improving comfort and socket stability.
Now, of course, since you lost your limb about what, 17 years old? Was that
Yeah,
when you lost yours?
it was only
Um,
5 years ago.
gee, I'm
Long
so
ago.
young, so young. I know it was like 5 years ago. I get you. I'm there too. So, is this even just a personal question? Is this even on the table for you?
That's yeah, good question. Yeah, Dr. Carty and I have chatted a lot about this, and we got my legs imaged.
Yeah.
Um, we think so, but only in ankle Amy, because
Okay.
my subtalar muscles are really atrophied, and there's not much
Yeah.
there. So I hope there's enough muscle there to build an ankle Amy.
And would you do it?
Yeah, and I'm thinking of yeah, an ankle Amy with our new magnetomicrometry implants.
And that you'll have to, oh, is that what
Yep.
Chris is working on?
Yep.
Oh, okay. That was going to be a question later on if we could even talk about the future, but that's not, we're not there yet, but we might come circle back if that's a possibility.
Sure.
Well, that's really cool. And that was, I was just curious because I did talk to Chris. For those of you listening, Chris is a PhD student in the lab. Met him a couple of years ago when I was in there first doing a gait study as the control group. Lovely to be able to come back and be the Amy group now. And Chris is working on something cool, but he is congenital amputee. He's a congenital
Yeah.
amputee, correct? And I asked him the same question, is it possible? And he goes, we're talking about it. So I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And I just didn't know because I mean, that brings hope to anybody that's been an amputee for years
Right.
that it's
Yeah,
not just something that's either at amputation or the few years right after.
100%.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love hearing that. So long term, if you were to have the most successful, okay, if I am most successful Amy revision you've had, what could possibly be all the positive effects coming out of it? What is it you're looking for to be, yep, that was 100% successful?
Great. As I just stated, a residuum that has more muscle tone, more bulk, more hypertrophy, and that can lead to a better fitting socket, and better socket control. So that's one aspect. Another is if you had pain, nerve pain, neuroma pain,
Mm,
these types of techniques can offer a tremendous relief and discomfort. Um, and finally, you have muscle sites that can be used in the future for neural control of a powered limb. So you have the
okay.
fundamental soft tissue framework for a very good neural control. So
Okay.
those are the three dominant areas.
Yeah, I like that. And that is also another thing. I was having some pretty intense phantom pains the first week or so after surgery in my kind of the ball of my foot and big toe. Felt like someone was crunching down on it. And that has gone away. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Another thing down. I'm really, really happy. I can smile through it, and it's not
And
like I'm smiling through pain.
how was your pain pre-surgery?
You know what? I would have constant buzzing, right? Constant
Yeah.
warm tingling all the time. It got to a point at first, and if you're not an amputee, you don't understand the idea that it feels claustrophobic because you can't get away from it. You're always stuck in that little space of feeling it. And it takes a lot of brain retraining to just go, it's okay, this is life, it's not going to kill you. And you start forgetting about it, you start putting it aside. Like talking to you now, I can feel a little bit, but not like I've had intense pain. I only had probably 5 or 6 major episodes that lasted 4 or 5 days
Yeah.
where I would literally be crying through my house because I could not, there was nothing I could do to avoid it or distract myself from it. I couldn't focus on anything. I couldn't read, couldn't do anything. And when I told Dr. Carty where that pain exactly was, he goes, "Oh, I know what nerve that is." I'm like, "Oh my God, I hope he gets rid of that one." Because it feels like someone's taking a knife to the bottom of my foot repeatedly. And it creates the knee-jerk reaction. I can be laying in bed, almost sound asleep, like falling
Yeah.
asleep, that fall off the cliff feel, and have my knee like leg come up and just hit me. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it was horrible. And so I'm very hopeful that that's gone because that, it comes once in a while. It is character building, I will say, but I built enough character. I think I'm good. I don't need to build any more character. Um, well, it's interesting because I have had someone on um, that talked about the Ewing procedure, and I know that's a part of, wasn't that named after a friend of yours?
Yeah, Jim Ewing is the first person to receive an AMI surgery.
And so what is the difference between a Ewing procedure and an Amy procedure? It,
Um, uh,
or is
a,
that
a Ewing procedure is just the AMI procedure at the below knee level. Yeah.
got it? Okay. Yep, that makes sense because the person I was talking to was a BK. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
But
Interesting. And you said he was the first one. That wasn't the man that was with you when you guys were hiking or climbing,
no,
was it?
no, but after my mountain climbing accident, I moved to North Conway, New Hampshire, and I
Mhm.
met Jim and
Got
was in
it.
the same climbing community. So Jim and I go way, way back into the climbing world.
Yeah. You got to see his story because I watched it after talking to you before and seeing him get that procedure done and then him climbing again was pretty epic.
Yeah, the film Augmented.
Yeah.
It's a great
So,
film.
so good. So good. Um, so now let's moving into just so audience knows, I'm very grateful for Hugh's time, but he is extremely busy. He has a lot going on. So I'm so grateful. So we're going to keep this right to the point. Jumping in. You have a company called Bionic Skins,
Uh,
and they do right now, they're at the BK level, working towards getting the AK socket fitting, a 3D imaged liner, and all that. I'm excited. I want to know how the Amy procedure, along with your bionics you're creating in lab right now, and the bionic skins are all going to come together. My guess is they're all going to come together to work in synchronicity, correct? Is that the end goal here to make the all the three parts come together?
yeah, and there's one additional part.
Ooh,
Can I
okay.
talk about recent work?
Yes, please do. Is this about Chris's work with you?
Yeah, so the AMI, the last word of the AMI is interface. So
Yes.
the AMI is not only the biological muscles linked together, it also requires some sensing
Yeah.
of muscle activation or length or speed or
Mhm.
force that's related or communicated to the prosthesis for control. So the field for 40 years has been stuck with this notion of using electrodes on the skin or on the muscle to
Mhm.
measure the extent to which the nervous system activates the muscle.
Right.
But what you're trying to control is not that. It's not activation by the nervous system. You're trying to control a prosthetic joint position, its speed, its torque, its stiffness. So what we actually want in that control loop is to measure the length of a muscle in real time, the speed of the muscle, how much force the muscle's generating. And there hasn't been a sensor to be able to do that well. So we invented what we call magnetomicrometry. So we implant small 3 millimeter magnetic spheres into muscle, and we typically put two in for each muscle. And it's called magnetomicrometry because we sense the distance between the beads. So as the muscle contracts or is lengthened, we then by measuring the distance between the beads using an external array of magnetic chips, we can measure in real time the state of the muscle or the length and speed of the muscle. We can also get force of the muscle tendon.
Wow.
And we do that by these beads give off a magnetic field, and then we have outside the body, we have a whole array of hundreds of little chips that measure the direction and magnitude of the field at the chip. So we can do the inverse problem to figure out where the source of the magnetic field must be to produce that field. So that to link kind of AMI amputation procedures with liner socket digital pipelines with magnetomicrometry
Mhm.
is a whole mechano-neural interface that's very exciting.
Yes, it is.
So what it will look like is the person will get the AMI procedure, but during that procedure, these small little magnetic spheres will be put in their muscles and tendons that form the AMI structures.
Wow.
And then after amputation, they'll heal, they'll go through physical therapy, they'll ultimately be imaged um, at Bionic Skins or a facility like Bionic Skins
Hmm.
using a CBCT or MRI capability that shows where the bones are, where the shape of the limb, and it'll show clearly where the magnetic beads are. And then a liner socket will be constructed. And then these magnetic arrays will be attached on the outside of the socket. Um, so it's not only mechanical loading, but that whole interface, you'll be able to think, move your AMI muscles. The bead movements will be tracked by these arrays. And a computer then will precisely command the exact position, speeds, and torques of your bionic limb. So that whole pipeline we're maturing now, and it's very close to being part of clinical care.
That is incredible. And being there and watching, and I love talking to all of the students working on these things because they're so excited to be a part of that. I mean, you can see the excitement. And I used to be a teacher, so I love
Oh, cool.
hearing that excitement from students because if they're loving what they're doing, they don't even think there's boundaries. They just go, and you
Okay.
guys are breaking boundaries like left and right.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility? Now, when you mentioned it, how it was going to happen, because Amy might become then the status quo at amputation, right? The Amy is going to
Right.
become worldwide. That's what you do. And beads can be put in then. But what about someone like me? And now I've had an
Oh, yeah.
amputation, I've had the Amy, but now I'm closed up.
No, so
How?
we developed um, an inserter of the beads um, where so one can under potentially ultrasound guidance just create a small incision into the skin and just pop the beads into any muscle kind of as an outpatient on an outpatient basis. So the beads don't have to be put in during the acute
That's
or revision surgery. They can be put in at any time.
That is incredible. Like that, I'm excited. My husband probably won't be very excited when I say I want to do that. But I'd be willing to do that because it
So
sounds
back,
very,
yeah, back to my leg. I'd like to get my ankle musculature connected and
yeah,
then the beads popped in so I can have really
yeah.
exquisite control of a powered ankle.
Now, how close and is so going into that now, so you have the starting point of the interface, the socket side, the liner side, obviously starting point bionic skins, where they have the capabilities and your knowledge and what education is going on there. Is that, are they starting to work on that interface to be implement inside those sockets or within the
The,
3D printed or
the magnetic interface?
yeah.
Yeah, so Bionic Skins now, as you're aware, is a clinical facility just north of Boston where we build entire limbs with a digital pipeline. So we image the residuum and then using physics and artificial intelligence, we
Mhm.
from first principles design a comfortable liner and socket. So that pipeline exists and we're now treating patients. My I have an additional company called Muscle that's developing the magnetic interface.
Got it.
So the two technologies will be married at
Okay.
some point to give a whole mechanical socket loading and neural interface paradigm.
Wow. And so how far out is that actually with a working ankle or a working knee? I mean, how many years are we looking
We
at?
we plan to do an early feasibility first in human study in the next 18 months,
Oh,
and then a larger clinical trial in the order of, tens of subjects
wow.
shortly following the early feasibility study. So a lot will be happening in the next 3 years or so.
That's actually totally incredible.
And
I
and
mean,
certainly a commercial availability will, in the time frame of about 5 years. So it'll happen quickly.
yeah, yeah, I would assume so. Well, this is fantastic. I love being a part of it. I love hearing about it. I love trying to learn a little bit more, and I really want more people to understand it because, I give the layman's terms when people ask me what it really is. So I'm really hoping we'll get a lot of people on here to listen to you, Dr. Carty, and a little bit more of a hope for the amputee community because, we're here, like you said, we talked about, it's not growing back. So, to have a lifestyle that's worth living, um, I think being able to go into this direction is an amazing leap for us. And to say being an amputee now, it's not a disability. I would suggest otherwise. And we do have some conversations. I did hear a couple of kids talking in your lab one day. I guess there was a younger one that came in and they were talking about the whole the Paralympics or the Olympics and people
Uh,
competing against able body,
right.
full body. And I
Yeah.
almost chimed in because it drives me nuts when people think that there's such an advantage. And I mean, in the long run, I guess there will be, but it's not easy either. I mean, there's a lot of hills to climb as an amputee as well, especially in this day and age with the kind of prosthesis we have and the
Yeah.
simple, running blades and things like that. That's a whole lot of body work and tissue issues that we
Yeah.
have to deal with. So to rise to that takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength too. So maybe in the
Yes.
future.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very interesting time. Across the entire technological landscape,
Hmm.
we see an ever increasing rate of innovation. So
Yeah.
you probably heard this, that the number of inventions in the first decade or so of this century
Hmm.
exceed all inventions from the last century.
I
Uh,
have heard something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and that's reflected also in prosthetic innovation. So things are going faster and faster and faster. So yeah, better tech is coming for sure.
It is. Well, I'm excited to see what happens for you. And if you end up going through all that and it works, um, that'll be really cool.
It will be
Yeah.
cool.
You know what? I am so grateful for your time. I do not want to take up more than I need to. I really want to just hit to the heart, talk to you a little bit, and just appreciate what you're doing for our community, and the time that you take to discuss that with me.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for all your work and contributions as well.
Yeah, I love that walking through and I have to say this really quick. It's been so fun being there and working with the students and John in particular because I've really worked with John the whole time really with
Uh,
Tony at the helm before, but You're right. It takes a lot of patience there. I don't think people realize you don't just go in and just play around. Like there's a lot of, let's hold on, I
Or
got to get some coding figured out. And it blows my mind, the stuff that you all see on the screen. And he's like, "Oh, I see it." And I'm like, "What do you see?" It's just numbers and it's just like a black and white screen with numbers running. And it's
yeah,
impressive. It's very humbling and very impressive. So I will sit quietly
MIT,
while he has to work.
yeah, MIT students are very, very bright. Yeah.
They are. It's incredible. And you guys are doing a great job. Thank you again, Hugh, for coming back on. And I look forward, I'm out next week getting my sutures out. So I might try to stop by and see the lab on the 18th. But
I'll see you
yeah.
then.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you again. Have a great week.